The Shaws were the picture of normalcy. Patriarch Robert, a bank manager, exuded quiet strength. His wife Evelyn radiated warmth, her days filled with volunteering and gardening. Their children, 18-year-old Sarah, college-bound and bright, and 16-year-old David, a basketball prodigy, completed their idyllic world. Little did they know, a storm was brewing, one that would shatter their peaceful existence and test the very fabric of their family. Their happy home, nestled on a cul-de-sac in suburban Atlanta, would soon become a prison, their lives held hostage by a chilling scheme orchestrated by a cunning criminal mastermind. Arthur Dalton, known in the criminal underworld as the Maestro, was a study in contrasts. With an intellect that could have rivaled any CEO, he chose a life of crime, orchestrating elaborate heists with meticulous precision. He saw the world as a game of chess, and people, mere pawns in his grand scheme. Dalton had been observing the Shaws for weeks, studying their routines, their habits, their vulnerabilities. To him, they weren't people. They were the key to his most ambitious plan yet, a bank robbery, flawlessly executed, with the Shaws as unwitting accomplices. Dalton's plan was as intricate as it was audacious. He would exploit Robert's position at the bank, using his inside knowledge to bypass security systems and gain access to the vault. But to control Robert, he needed leverage, and he found it in his family. Dalton would use fear and manipulation, holding the Shaws hostage in their own home, turning their love for each other into his most powerful weapon. He would be the puppet master, and the Shaws, the puppets, dancing to his tune, their every move dictated by his threats. Dalton, a master manipulator, began his operation subtly. He planted a tracking device on Robert's car, monitored their phone calls, learned their schedules. He needed to know their fears, their weaknesses, the things they held dear. He discovered Sarah's acceptance letter to a prestigious university, David's aspirations for a basketball scholarship, Evelyn's fragile health after a recent illness. These weren't just details to Dalton. They were weapons, instruments to orchestrate the Shaws' cooperation. One evening, as the Shaws sat down for dinner, a chilling voice broke through the normalcy. A distorted voice on the other end of the phone. Dalton introduced himself, not by name, but as someone who knew their every move. He described Sarah's laughter as she received her acceptance letter, David's triumphant three-pointer at his recent game, the way Evelyn carefully tended her rose bushes. Panic gripped the Shaws as they realized the extent of their vulnerability, the invisible eyes that had been watching them, the stranger who knew their life better than they could have imagined. He laid out his plan, a simple yet terrifying proposition. Robert would follow his instructions to the letter, facilitating a seemingly routine transfer of funds from the bank. Fear and confusion gripped the Shaws. They huddled together, the weight of Dalton's threat heavy in the air. Robert, the protector, felt a surge of helplessness, his world collapsing around him. Evelyn's usually cheerful face was etched with worry, her hand clutching Robert's, seeking solace in his touch. Sarah's dreams of a bright future turned into a nightmare, the acceptance letter now a painful reminder of what was at stake. David, usually full of youthful energy, sat in stunned silence, the gravity of the situation slowly sinking in. Days turned into a blur of fear and forced normalcy. Dalton remained a phantom presence, his voice a constant reminder of the danger lurking just beyond their doorstep. He communicated through coded messages, burner phones, and dead drops, leaving no trace of his true identity. He instructed Robert on every detail of the bank transfer, emphasizing the precision required, the importance of appearing natural, the severe consequences of any deviation. Each interaction was a tightrope walk, a constant fear of saying or doing the wrong thing, of tipping off the authorities and facing Dalton's wrath. The Shaws lived in a state of perpetual fear, their home no longer a sanctuary but a gilded cage. Sarah, despite her fear, possessed a sharp mind and a fierce determination. She started paying attention, noticing details, inconsistencies in Dalton's instructions. She began to suspect that they were always one step ahead, that Dalton was feeding them information they already knew. Was it possible Dalton wasn't watching them directly, but relying on outdated information? This glimmer of hope sparked a dangerous plan in her mind. If she could prove Dalton wasn't watching them in real time, maybe they could alert the authorities without putting themselves in immediate danger. Sarah decided to test her theory. She convinced her family to subtly deviate from their routine. Instead of their usual Friday night pizza order, they opted for Chinese takeout. David, instead of his basketball practice, pretended to be sick, remaining indoors. Sarah, defying Dalton's instructions to stay away from her laptop, sent a coded message to her friend, hoping it would reach the authorities without arousing suspicion. It was a risky plan, a gamble with their lives on the line, but the Shaws were desperate, clinging to this sliver of hope. The waiting game was excruciating. Every passing hour felt like an eternity, each ring of the phone a potential death knell. Dalton, however, remained silent. Despite their newfound hope, the Shaws knew they were racing against time. Dalton's plan was already in motion, the bank robbery set to take place in a matter of days. They had to act quickly, but with utmost caution. One wrong move, one slip-up, could have devastating consequences. Their lives depended on playing Dalton's game just long enough to get the authorities involved without raising his suspicions. The day of the robbery arrived, a cloud of anxiety hanging heavy in the air. Robert, following Dalton's meticulous instructions, went about his day at the bank, his every move calculated, each interaction laced with fear. He felt the weight of his family's safety resting on his shoulders, the knowledge that one wrong step could have dire consequences. As the clock ticked closer to the designated time, the tension in the bank became palpable. Following Dalton's plan, Robert initiated the transfer, his hands trembling as he punched in the codes, his heart pounding in his chest. As the money was being transferred, Robert's mind raced. He knew the authorities were outside, their presence a double-edged sword, a source of hope and a potential trigger for Dalton's violence. He sent up a silent prayer, a plea for his family's safety, for the successful apprehension of the man who had held them hostage for weeks. Outside, the FBI agents watched as the transaction went through, their eyes glued to the bank's entrance, waiting for any sign of Dalton or his accomplices. Suddenly, a commotion erupted near the back of the bank. A man, later identified as one of Dalton's accomplices, attempted to flee, crashing through a side door, only to be tackled and apprehended by the waiting FBI agents. Inside, Robert breathed a sigh of relief. The plan was working. Dalton's web was unraveling, his meticulously crafted scheme falling apart. The relief was short-lived, however, as a wave of concern for his family washed over him. Were they safe? Had Dalton made good on his threats? Unbeknownst to Robert, Dalton, who had been monitoring the situation remotely, realized the game was up. He had underestimated the Shaws, their resilience, their courage in the face of danger. With Dalton's accomplice in custody and the bank secure, the FBI shifted their focus to ensuring the safety of the Shaws. A team of agents rushed to their house, finding them huddled together, unharmed but shaken. As the agents secured the perimeter, ensuring no immediate threat remained, a wave of relief washed over the Shaws. Their ordeal was finally over. Their home, once a prison, was once again their sanctuary. The nightmare that had haunted them for weeks was finally fading away. The investigation into Dalton's operation went into full swing. The FBI, working tirelessly, pieced together the intricate details of his plan, marveling at his meticulousness and cunning. They analyzed phone records, tracked online activity, and interviewed witnesses, building a comprehensive profile of the elusive criminal mastermind. They discovered a trail of aliases, shell corporations, and offshore accounts, evidence of a criminal career spanning years. Dalton, they realized, was no ordinary criminal. He was a phantom, a master manipulator who had evaded capture for far too long. As the investigation progressed, the Shaws slowly began to piece their lives back together. Months turned into years, and the case of Arthur Dalton, the elusive maestro, remained unsolved. The FBI, despite their best efforts, couldn't track him down. He had vanished without a trace, disappearing into thin air. The Shaws, while relieved to be safe, couldn't shake off the feeling that justice hadn't been served, that the man who had turned their lives upside down was still out there, free to orchestrate another elaborate scheme. They lived with a constant undercurrent of anxiety, their sense of security forever altered. Just when their hope began to dwindle, a break in the case came from an unexpected source. A tip from an anonymous informant led the FBI to a small town in South America, where Dalton had been living under an assumed identity. He had grown complacent, lulled into a false sense of security, believing he had outrun his past. The FBI, acting on the tip, moved in swiftly, apprehending Dalton in a daring raid, finally bringing the elusive criminal mastermind to justice. The news of Dalton's capture sent ripples of relief and satisfaction through the Shaws. They had waited years for this moment, for the closure that only justice could bring. The trial was a media spectacle, with the Shaws' story captivating the nation, their courage in the face of adversity praised by many. The Shaw family story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the strength that can be found in the face of unimaginable adversity. They had stared into the abyss, confronted their deepest fears, and emerged from the darkness, forever changed but unbroken. Their ordeal had tested their limits, pushing them to the brink, yet they had found the courage to fight back, to outsmart a criminal mastermind, to reclaim their lives. The Shaw's story also highlights the crucial role of law enforcement in upholding justice, in protecting the innocent, and in holding criminals accountable for their actions. The FBI agents who worked tirelessly to solve the case, who risked their lives to ensure the Shaw's safety, exemplify the dedication and commitment that define those who serve and protect. Their relentless pursuit of justice, their unwavering belief in the power of right over wrong, ultimately brought a dangerous criminal to justice, ensuring that he could no longer terrorize innocent lives. The Shaws' journey to healing was long and arduous. The trauma of their ordeal left an indelible mark, a constant reminder of their vulnerability. Yet they refused to be defined by their experience. They sought therapy, finding solace and guidance in sharing their story, in learning coping mechanisms, in rebuilding their lives brick by brick. They discovered a reservoir of inner strength, a determination to move forward, to embrace life with newfound appreciation. Their story serves as a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity.